I'll see you later. Thank you. And now there is a warning from debt experts this morning who are urging anyone worried about their finances because of overspending at Christmas to get help as soon as they can.
As it comes as the Insolvency Service also reports that increasing numbers of younger people are filing for a type of mini bankruptcy called a debt relief order.
To talk about this more, we have Joanna Elson from Money Advice Trust and Paul Lewis from Radio 4's Money Box programme. Morning to you both. Thanks very much for joining us. And Paul, just set out first of all, what is a debt relief order? What is it?
Well, it's for people who've got relatively small amounts of debt, they've got no assets, they've got no house, and they haven't had one in the last 6 years, which is also important. And as you said, it's like mini bankruptcy, it's bankruptcy light, if you like. It's, I mean, I don't want to minimise it, it's not something you should embark on lightly because it does damage your credit rating and it makes it very hard for the future. But it is a new, relatively new, couple of years old, I think, and it is becoming more popular.
And Joanna, as we see, so we're seeing more and more people filing for that particular kind of bankruptcy. It's part of a major problem, isn't it, of how people are coping with debt?
It is. It is pretty tricky out there. You know, people are seeing their wages frozen if they've got a job. It's costing more to put food on their table, fill up their car with petrol, pay their heating costs. And families are really struggling. And the advice we give to people is to seek free independent advice, because if you go to your Citizens Advice Bureau or you phone National Debt Line, one of those kind of agencies, they'll talk people through their situation and find the best solution for them.
And what is the sort of typical amount of debt that you're finding people are in, and is it particularly young people in this age group, 25 to 34?
Well, the story you're talking about here is about this mini insolvency, and the story there is that the largest category of people now are young people taking that.
Why young people, do you think?
I guess because it's pretty tough for young people now, isn't it? It's very different to their parents' generation, when they might well have bought a house by now. They certainly wouldn't be paying for their higher education. They might have a well-paying job. They might be putting money away in savings. It's pretty tough. A lot of young people are in the private rented sector, where costs are spiralling, and it is pretty tough out there.
Paul, can I just ask, the student loans, I mean, you can come out of university with enormous debt.
Yes. Well, you can't, you can't get those written off. No, there are a number of debts you can't get written off, including maintenance debts.
That's categorised separately, is it?
Yes. Well, it's because the government doesn't want you to get them written off.
No,
basically.
clearly.
You used to be able to at one time, but they closed that loophole. So not student debt. But student debt is very cheap debt. The kind of debt we're talking about is very expensive debt, whether it's one of these short-term loans we've talked about before on the programme that charge several thousand% APR, or whether it's, you know, maybe you've borrowed money from a doorstep lender, which is hundreds of percent APR, or even expensive credit card or store card at 20 or 30%. These are all quite devastating amounts. And, you know, I'm concerned also about the people who aren't in serious debt now, you know, the people who have spent too much at Christmas. And this may be the first step towards a debt of 20 or 30,000 in a couple of 3 years' time. Look at what you spent in December, maybe more than your income, and find a way to balance that out, let's say, I don't know, by Easter, which is 3 months ago.
You know, there are some people who say, if you like, the more hardline approach to this, which is that giving people the chance to have a mini bankruptcy or a way out of debt, if they know it's there, there's a danger that it's like a fallback position, which can get out of it if you get into trouble. And the hardline approach to this is that, no, if you get into debt, you've got to sort out your debt, you've got to pay it back. There, you know, is there a danger that people kind of know there's a way out, so they worry less about how far they're getting into it?
I think it's worth putting in context by saying that the vast majority of people we see actually do repay their debts and do get themselves into a situation where they're gradually paying back over time. But for this particular group, where, you know, the debt relief order is only approved if it's not feasible for them to pay back their debt. They've got no assets, they've got very low income, and it just isn't going to work.
Yeah, I mean, I should stress that although it's quite simple to do, it's not an easy way out for many people, because, you know, you can't get credit for up to 6 years. I heard of one couple who were in fear of losing their home. They tried to rent because they were going to have their home repossessed, and landlord said, oh, well, in your circumstances, I want 6 months deposit, thank you very much. Well, that puts you in a very, very difficult position. It's not an easy way out, but if you're absolutely up against it, it is a way out. It's like an ejector seat in an aircraft, you know, it saves your life once, but it's not the way to leave the vehicle every time it lands. You've got to look on it in that way, that it's there for emergencies, and that's a good thing. But the important thing is to look at your finances day by day and keep them in balance, because if you spend more than your income, how many times do I say this? Regularly for a long time, you'll be in debt and you will be scared.
I mean, it's kind of easy to say that as well, but when you do the sums and your expenditure, whether it's on food or electricity, whatever it is, just does outweigh your income, what can you do?
It is very, very hard. I mean, what we do with people when they phone our services, we do work through that with them in a very basic way and say, well, do you need that gym membership, for instance? Are you claiming all the tax credits, benefits and so on? So, often there is something you can do
More
that
space
way.
than perhaps you think there
That's
is.
right. And then if there isn't, well then often what we're doing is talking to them about negotiating with their creditors and trying to put something sustainable in place. So it's no good, minimising saying we can live on next to nothing. You've got to put something in place that will work for people over a period of time. And actually there's something about the relief of having done something and being on the road to recovery that people say, well, actually, OK, we've got a solution, we're going to stick to that now.
OK, very good to talk to you. Joanna Elson from Money Advice Trust, thank you, and Paul Lewis, thank you both.
Okay. Yes, and we'll be talking about that story a little bit later as well. So if you have your own personal experiences you'd like to share with us, we'd like to hear those this morning.
Paul's back later as well, aren't you?
I'm back later, yes. You can tweet me at Paul Lewis Money. And there's also links there to get free advice from Joanna's organisation and another one,
Excellent.
CCCS, that offers free advice. Best to use those links because if you go on a search engine, you might get paid for ones up the top. You want to get the real thing.
Absolutely. See you later. Thank you.
Paul, thank you very much. Time now, 6:43. A reminder of our